The sun had set hours ago, casting the dense forest into an inky blackness. Trees loomed like silent sentinels, their branches intertwining overhead to form an almost impenetrable canopy. As the last rays of daylight faded, I found myself alone, lost, and enveloped in a growing sense of dread. I had come to these woods for a weekend camping in solitude, a chance to escape the pressures of daily life and find some peace. But now, peace was the furthest thing from my mind. My flashlight flickered, casting feeble beams that barely pierced the darkness. The path that had seemed so clear earlier was now swallowed by shadows, leaving me disoriented and unsure of which way to turn. Panic began to creep in, a cold knot forming in the pit of my stomach. My breaths came faster, each one shallow and ragged. I tried to calm myself, to think rationally, but the oppressive silence of the forest pressed in on me, amplifying every rustle of leaves, every distant snap of a twig. I could almost hear my heart pounding in my chest, each beat a reminder of my growing fear. I took a deep breath and started walking, hoping to stumble upon a recognizable landmark or, by some stroke of luck, the trail I had lost. My footsteps seemed unnaturally loud, the crunch of leaves and twigs underfoot echoing in the stillness. Every sound was magnified, each one a potential threat lurking just beyond the reach of my feeble light. My thoughts spiraled, each one darker and more frantic than the last. What if I never found my way out? What if something was out there, watching me, waiting for me to make a wrong move? The trees seemed to close in around me, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal hands. I could feel my anxiety clawing at the edges of my mind, threatening to overwhelm me. In the distance, I heard the faint call of an owl. It should have been a comforting sound, a reminder that I wasn't entirely alone, but instead, it sent a shiver down my spine. My imagination ran wild, conjuring images of unseen predators and ancient spirits that roamed the woods at night. I shook my head, trying to dispel the irrational fears, but they clung to me like shadows. I stumbled over a root, falling to my knees. The flashlight slipped from my grasp and rolled away, its light flickering weakly before dying altogether. I was plunged into total darkness, the kind that seemed to swallow sound and light, leaving only my escalating panic. I fumbled for the flashlight, my hands trembling, but the more I searched, the more elusive it seemed. Tears stung my eyes as the sense of impending doom grew stronger. I was truly lost now, alone in the vast, different wilderness. The realization hit me like a blow, knocking the wind from my lungs. I curled into myself, trying to make my small, vulnerable form as inconspicuous as possible. The darkness felt alive, a living entity that fed on my fear. I closed my eyes, focusing on my breathing, trying to slow the rapid pace of my heart. In the back of my mind, I remembered something I had read about surviving in the wild: stay put, conserve energy, and try to signal for help. But the rational part of my brain struggled to be heard over the cacophony of anxious thoughts. Minutes passed, or maybe hours, I couldn't tell. Time seemed to stretch and warp in the darkness. I thought of my family and friends, of the warmth and safety of home. The contrast to my current predicament was almost too much to bear. I felt a deep, aching loneliness, a sense of isolation that cut to the core. Then, through the haze of fear and despair, I heard a sound, a distant, rhythmic punching. Footsteps. My heart leapt, a mix of hope and fear. I strained to see through the darkness, my ears honing in on the direction of the sound. The footsteps grew louder, more distinct. I wanted to call out, but my voice caught in my throat. A beam of light pierced the darkness, bright and surging. Relief flooded through me as the light found my huddled form. A voice called out, warm and concerned. "Hey! Are you okay?" It was a park ranger, his face etched with worry, but also with the calm confidence of someone who knew these woods well. He helped me to my feet, his grip strong and reassuring. As we walked back to safety, the ranger's steady presence kept my anxiety at bay. The forest no longer felt like an enemy, but rather a vast, neutral landscape that had simply been indifferent to my plight. Back at the ranger station, under the harsh fluorescent lights, the ordeal felt like a distant nightmare. I was given a warm drink and a blanket, the physical comfort helping to soothe my frayed nerves. The ranger sat with me, his calm demeanor a balm to my still recovering psyche. "You did well to stay put," he said. "It made it easier to find you." I nodded, too exhausted to speak. The fear and anxiety of the night were still fresh, but they were now tempered by the relief of being safe. As I sat there, I realized that the darkness and the unknown had magnified my fears, turning the forest into a labyrinth of terror. But now, with the dawn breaking outside, the world seemed a little less frightening, and I felt a renewed sense of resilience. In the days that followed, the memory of that night stayed with me. It served as a reminder of how easily the mind could succumb to fear and anxiety, but also of the strength that could be found in the face of such challenges. And though I knew I would never forget the terror of being lost in the woods, I also knew that I had faced my fears and come out the other side, a little stronger and a little wiser.